All right. Getting ready to get started here. We'll give it another minute so that everybody can join in, and then we'll go ahead and kick this show off. Today, we're talking about how to build custom fields on standard objects in Salesforce, which gives you a lot of power and with just a little bit of effort. So,
Yeah,
all
we're going
right.
to be showcasing our slight changes to the asset object, which was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. When you tasked me with creating an internal asset tracking solution, I was like, all right. But it was
Right.
a breeze. It took me like, I don't know, what it combined like 2 hours total of preparation, planning, and then we implemented it and it works. It works pretty flawlessly in my opinion.
Well, and I guess that's a great kickoff, right? That's a great introduction to our to today's discussion. So it's 2:30. We'll go ahead and get started. Now, what we're talking about today is that we built an asset tracking tool inside of our Salesforce org. Of course, it's tax season, right? And the tax you got to pay taxes on, depreciate all your assets, yada yada yada, and it can be a bit of a nightmare. So, what we're going to show you is how quickly we were able to create a simple tool to track all of our assets, and we're going to take a couple of these episodes to walk you through how that happened. And it may sound pretty complex at first, but when you see what we did, it's really simple, and a lot of you will be able to jump right in and get at this without a problem. So, without further ado, I'm Joshua at Dynamic Specialties Group, and today we're going to talk about how to create custom fields inside your Salesforce org. And to do that for you, we're going to have James here go ahead and share his screen and walk you through the basics of it. We'll talk about our asset tracking tool, and then he'll show you how to make some custom fields. So, without further ado, James, why don't you take it away, bud?
Hello, I'm James. Back at it again. So yeah, like Josh said, we created an asset tracking tool. We an asset tracking solution, for lack of a better word. And so I'm going to show you that real quick. We're in our actual DSG's live org, the one that we use, our production org. So I'll show you just the real quick changes that we made to the asset object just by clicking into one of these internal assets. So, and we'll be going more into that, like over the course of several episodes. We'll cover things like the fields, record types, page layouts, and objects relationships that I created to build this object. So, but today's just custom fields. So here's an internal asset, which is my Dell 27-inch monitor, and it tracks everything, all the pertinent information on this asset. So the name of it, including the field tag number, the serial number, manufacturer, the price, condition, all of these were custom fields that I created and added to the asset object. And I'm going to show you here how I created those custom fields in a second on our demo org. So we really don't need to go too far into here, just to kind of see an overview of where we're going over the next few episodes of the Back to Basics in this little sub-series of creating the asset object or modifying the asset object. So let me switch over to our demo org. So I'll get out of here. We're in a demo org. It looks pretty similar, but it is different. So to go ahead and create fields in in Salesforce, a lot of people think, oh, you need to be an admin. And it does help to have some admin experience, but pretty much any power user can go ahead and create a custom field in Salesforce, as long as you follow some good tips that I have here. So I think with anything in Salesforce, having good preparation provides for perfect performance, having some good foresight. So the process that we had for building this asset tracking thing before we created the fields, where we had to identify our objective, which was just to track internal assets. So we're like, how do we do this? We can create a whole new object, or we can just modify the asset object, which we went with. Next step, Josh and I brainstormed for a few minutes. We examined what we need to track in the object, and that enabled us to ensure that we created the fields that we wanted. And now we wanted to keep the data concise but accurate and thorough. So we just wanted just the fields that we wanted and not excess fat. So then while I was creating the fields, I also was looking for opportunities to use pre-populated and uniform data entry types like pick lists. And I'll show you pick lists here in a bit. But the beauty about pick lists in the pre-populated and uniform data fields is it keeps all of our data uniform and clean, but B, it makes users' jobs so much easier. It's easy for them to click a button, go through 3 or 4 options, click the one they want instead of having to type it out and make sure they didn't misspell anything, things like that. And then the last step is it goes with every customization you can do in Salesforce or any other, is having a nice sideboard, keeping good notes, and having it all up and ready to go when you're ready to make these modifications. That way, if you kind of lose track of where you're at or you forget some things, you don't have to go back and recreate the wheel every single time you forget something. You just look at your sideboard and it's right there for you. So let's get on to our demo org, and I'm going to show you how to get to creating
James, real
fields.
quick, I'd like to
Yeah.
point out real quick that how simple discovery can be. It doesn't have to be a complex process. You can sit down and have a cup of coffee, a quick chat about where you'd like to go, and discovery's done as much as you need for a simple application or a solution like this. Thanks, James. Go ahead.
Yeah. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes of creating fields. So field creation happens in setup, and the easiest way to get to setup is to click this little gear icon on the top and go to setup, and it'll load a pretty similar looking page, but it's the back end. And since we're working with objects, we'll need to go to the object manager, and that's already, every time you open setup, it's just right here next to the home tab. Just go to object manager, and we'll be working with the asset object, which lucky for us, it's right here, but there's quite a few objects in Salesforce as is, and it can be even larger. So the easiest way to find an object is to just go to the quick find box and type in the one that you want. So we're typing in asset, and it's right there. So when you get into the object, the object manager of the object, you have all of these options, but we're looking just for fields today. So we'll go to fields and relationships. And to create a new field, we go up to the top here to the new field button. Excuse me. Once you click on the new field button, it'll start the new field wizard, which takes you through several different steps, and the steps change depending on what type of field you're creating. But you can see here the several different data types that you can select for, and they all vary depending on what type of field you want. Today, we're just going to be going over 3 of the fields. It'd be pretty boring to watch me sit here and enter 10, 15 fields just to create this asset tracker. So we're going to start off with a text field, which is just going to be for entering the device's name. So click text field, hit next, and we need to label the field. Most of these steps are pretty similar across the fields, but you'll see the wizard changes as you go through or as you change the field type. So device name. And most devices don't have a name longer than, say, 75 characters, so let's cap it at that. And as always, I mentioned this before, giving things a description. You'll always want to give everything you do in your Salesforce org a description, because someone else might come in and not have a clue. I mean, device name's pretty obvious, but they might not have a clue what you mean by this field, and you might not have a clue what you mean in a few months. So field for recording the device's name. And then there's different attributes that you can add to this. Like you can make this field required, which actually in this case isn't a bad idea. Let's make the device name required. So you can also make it so it's unique. In this case, probably not a good idea to make this unique because device names can be similar. So go next. Here is where you can control who sees what. So all of these are different user profiles, which we can get into later in a different video. Just know that by checking visible and unchecking visible, you can modify what users can see what on this object. If you wanted some users to not see the device name, you could uncheck visible and they would no longer be able to see that in the object. So we'll go next. And then again, this is another page where we'll especially be getting into this in a later part of the asset tracker series when we create our page layout for the internal assets. But if we had more page layouts, we could add and remove this field from those different page layouts. For now, we're just going to go ahead and save in new because we want to create another field, which takes us back to step 1 of the wizard again. In this step, we're going to go to pick list because we're going to be adding again. So this is an instance where we're looking for where can we make our data uniform, and this is an instance. We're going to be creating a device type pick list. So we have several different categories that we've come up with for several different categories for where our devices could fall under. So to keep this all uniform and the data looking good, we want to create this as a pick list. That way we don't have a bunch of different entries, easier to report on later, easier to kind of get an overall view of what your internal assets are. So let's name this device type. And in a pick list, you have the option to use a global pick list value set, which you can select here. I have no global pick list values, which we would create in a different area, so you can use across multiple objects. So we're just going to enter our fields or enter our values in manually. So we have displays, and when you're entering values manually, each new value has to be on its own line, so Salesforce knows to make it as a new value. So put laptop/desktops, sound recording, keyboard and mouse. Do this right. Ergonomics. And last but not least, we got miscellaneous peripherals. Miscellaneous is, I know it doesn't exactly fall in a pretty category, but there are some random peripherals out there that you really don't know what category they'd fit into. So, and then we're going to give this a description again. Pick list for recording. Of device. There we go. Again, so someone else knows what they're looking at when they come in here and see what your field's all about. So we click next. All right, again, we can change this later if we want to. And then we'll hit save and new, and we'll add our last field. So our last field is going to be a date field, and it's just to record the date that the device was acquired. And date fields are really simple. You don't have to fill out much for them. So we'll click next after selecting date. And just a quick side note, there is a difference between date and time. We're concerned about what date the company acquired the asset. We don't really care about the time during the day. So we'll just select day or date. And give it a description. Company. Go. Next. Again, we can change who sees this. We'll leave that as normal for now, and we'll click save. And that's the last field we're going to enter for today. Again, to keep it quick, it would be boring to sit there and watch me. So we can go ahead and go over to the asset object and see our fields that we entered. So we'll just type in assets over here in the Finder. And we have no assets in here, so we'll click new. And we can see as long as everything went well, we can see device name, which, because we clicked the required attribute, has a star here. We have a device type pick list, which we just entered. As you can see, it's much easier to just click on that and click display than even just typing display. And then we have the date acquired, which populates a calendar that we can go back and click whatever day we acquired this. So they're pretty disorganized right now, but next few videos we'll be going over record types and page layouts. And page layouts is where you can really organize fields. And I'm pretty excited to get into that because creating even just this simple asset tracker was a lot of fun. So Yeah, I
Well,
think
thanks,
that's all I've
James.
got.
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you very much. And so, like James said, a little planning can go a long way for long-term scalability of your Salesforce org. So take a few minutes when you have an idea to talk it out with the others who are in your org and make sure it's a good idea for everybody, and that you're thinking a little bit in the future about the fields that you're creating. As we showed you, this is a really simple process. It doesn't take a lot of skills, a lot of experience to do, and you can learn about how to do this on trailhead.com if you'd like to. If you have any questions that you want to reach out to us, of course, you can direct message us. You can find us at dynaspecgroup.com. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out, you can have James come over and do a little bit of work in your org as the $75 as needed admin. And that's where we can come over, use our base Salesforce skills to take some of the simple stuff off your plates and make life a little bit easier for you. There's no obligation. You can pay as you go, no long-term commitments. It's just an opportunity for us to help you and work together. So without anything further, we're going to go ahead and let you guys go. Thank you so much for your time today, and we'll see you next time when we're going to be addressing the next step in building your asset tracker inside of your Salesforce work. All right, be well, guys. Cheers.